everyone, welcome to this video. This is a life coaching series that I do, or I prefer the term personal coaching for what I do in my personal coaching practice. But this is just a special feature that I started about 5 weeks ago. I think this is the 5th video where I answer personal questions or just things you've been wondering about life. Like people on the music channel, Rockin' a Country music channel, may have about life. People are going through difficult times everywhere. It's just a difficult world in which to live. So I decided, you know what? Let me take some of what I know, some of what I've experienced, and I'll present ideas based on your questions. So with that in mind, I got a viewer question just asking me to sort of like share my thoughts on what I thought. So the way I do it is, if you want to email me, whether it's to have personal coaching yourself with me or just to ask a question, you can email me at rockinthecountry@gmail.com. That's in the description box. Or you can email me at echelonpersonalcoaching@gmail.com. But here's the question. And I don't reveal who said it, who asked it. If they want to in the comment section, that's fine. But I leave it just open-ended. And if you do have a question or concerns, if you're going through a very difficult time, don't throw anybody under the bus that you may be going through the difficult time with. Just give salient details, and then I'll decide which ones, I'll reveal, just to sort of keep things, I don't know, not on the up and up, but just sort of less frictional, put it that way. All right, so here is the email. Okay. I'm not sure if this is a topic you deal with or not, but recognizing job burnout. I worked in mental health field direct care for 24 years, and right before I could take the 55 retirement age they offered, right at the tail end, I went to a mental health provider for stress leave because I knew I was way off. The healthcare provider said, "You're in bad shape and cannot work this job anymore." I had 2 months left before turning 55, so she kept me the whole time. Then I took that retirement because she'd reached the official age, evidently. I think in today's world, the topic is good to talk about. There is so much of it these days. Anyway, just thought this might be good. Thanks. Well, yeah, it's been a relevant topic. The human race has experienced stress throughout its whole history. So I know we like to think that our current circumstances are more this or more that than other times in history. And generally speaking, it's not. Pretty much there's a stasis, there's a consistency of stress, of joy. It just looks different. 100 years ago, it was done in wool coats. Now it's done in, synthetic coats or whatever. But job burnout, that's basically how do you prevent job burnout? And you don't necessarily do it. You don't necessarily prevent it. And I'll just share a few perspectives that you can take in and use as you see fit. Like, people leave jobs for different reasons. Their boss is a jerk, this is that. They thought it would be better than what they wanted or whatever. But like, I'll use Larry Bird, one of the great basketball players. Could even be Magic Johnson, same era. Larry was a phenomenal basketball player, and he had to retire because of pain in his back. He had injured his back. Magic Johnson had gotten sick in his own right. He also had to retire from the league. That was forced upon them, essentially. So those are sort of understandable reasons. We think for some reason when we have mental stress, and there's merit to this, that when we have mental stress that we should just be able to deal with it. And in some cases that's true. Like, you don't want to be a baby. We know life is hard, and so suck it up, buttercup sometimes applies. But other times it doesn't. Other times there are very real reasons and ways of addressing dissatisfaction in different parts of life. And job burnout is a very real thing, and there are reasons for it. It could be boredom. Not everybody wants a challenge in life. Some people are so content working the most menial job, and they're not to be criticized because they don't want more, so to speak, out of life. In some ways, they may have more out of life because they're not so driven to keep climbing that corporate ladder. But other people want a consistent challenge. I'm one of them. I get bored very easily. And if I were to work, I wasn't the best employee until I had my own businesses, which I started about 35 years ago, and I've done several different businesses. I like that challenge. I like having to think on my feet. I like when things go well, that it's because of decisions that I've made or certain things that I have figured out, or I figured out the right timing, or the timing just was right to launch something. And similarly, when things go wrong, I can solve it. Generally speaking, it's up to me. Like when I played competitive tennis, I liked playing singles better than doubles. I love the speed of doubles, but if I had a partner who couldn't keep up with me, it was really boring. Or I preferred the singles because I knew if it went well, I knew what I did right. I also knew what I needed to improve, and I could work on that. And when things went poorly, I'm like, I have to work on that, but it's up to me. Not everybody likes that approach toward life. Not everybody is sort of internally driven to get to another level, if you will. But in life, here's something that happens that we just sort of absorb, whether you want to call it osmosis, but I just refer to it as structural psychological adoption, where the environment in which we are in, and in this case, educated, it sort of wires us to look for the next thing. We go from kindergarten to first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, on up through high school. If you go to college, it's college, sometimes post-grad. That structure of education is always get smarter, learn more, figure out more. And that can create a psyche that says, I want more in the workplace. I want more of a challenge. I don't want repetition. Some repetition's fine because then you know where certain things are and how to approach certain clients or certain things in your job day to day. Routine is good in some ways, but if you only do the same things repeatedly in a given job, that itself could cause burnout out of sheer boredom. Other sources of burnout can be you've got a boss that's just driving you. Like maybe you're goal driven and your boss is goal driven, but you don't get acknowledged for being a hard worker, for coming up with good ideas, for increasing the bottom line of a company, or for, in the case of somebody working in the mental health field, of helping people. We need certain acknowledgement, otherwise it just starts to degrade us because we feel invalidated as a human being. And those sentiments can lead themselves toward greater recognition within your own mind that I don't like this. And that mantra, the longer it plays on auto loop in your head or occasional loop, like a continual, not continuous loop, it's a, I don't like this, my boss is a jerk. Over time, that wears you down. So it's a very real thing, but I'll even back up to the human race, in a sense, in first world countries, how growing older has created certain problems that prior millennia and centuries didn't experience. Antibiotics were a game changer, for better and worse, depending on perspective, for the human race, because the average age in the industrialized world, worldwide, I believe, was somewhere around 30 prior to the discovery of penicillin, antibiotics. Once an infection could be fought off, like people used to die. They get a tooth infection and they die. Or some other infection, because we didn't understand germs and how they permeated the body, that people died frequently from infection. Antibiotics were a game changer. Now people live longer, right? It went from like 30 to 60 almost overnight, the average age of human beings. Now, like in the US, it's something like women live on average to like age 83 and men to something like age 79 or 80. Well, along with that come other things such as Alzheimer's, dementia, different types of heart disease, vascular issues, and so on, skin issues, dermatological issues, you name it. And you wouldn't necessarily have drawn this conclusion, but I will. It also means you live and work longer in the same job if you don't switch jobs. And that can lead to burnout. Or just the fact that you're going to work and feeling the pressure every day to meet your bills, that can also lead to a sense of, my God, I don't have the energy I used to have, but I have to keep going to work. And maybe the job itself is fine. You like the job, you like your boss, you like your colleagues, you like the commute and all the parts of it, but you're just getting tired. And some things are just unavoidable. I mean, every day you wake up is another day where there are going to be challenges and hopefully potential joys, But whatever dissatisfaction or ailment you've got, whether psychological or physical or physiological, those things continue. But here's another factor. As we get older, and we're of course aware of our mortality, we begin to contemplate more often the meaning of life. What legacy do I want to leave? The older you get, in your 20s, you're generally not thinking along these lines. You hit your 50s, and you do. In your 40s, you're too busy raising kids and trying to save money for your own retirement and put the kids through college or whatever you're trying to do. But as you get older in your 50s and 60s, you are starting to think, wow, I've been working this same job for so long, or the same industry for so long, and it's just not fulfilling now. And then you start thinking, wow, what do I want to do to leave my mark in this world, or for my family or children, grandchildren, whatever? But you didn't accomplish the things you wanted to. And that can start to weigh on your sense of every minute, hour, day, week, month that you spend at a given job that isn't fulfilling. It may pay the bills, but that can also begin to weigh on you. And those are issues that you just start to, once you become aware that these dynamics may be at work in your own life, it kind of does become easier to deal with, even just being aware of it, because then you realize, all right, I can identify what it is that I'm feeling, and you can begin to start to make changes in what you're doing if changes are necessary. Sometimes just being aware of these things makes life better for you. So as the days become shorter, we know our own mortality is coming. It's one of, I don't know how many animals in the animal kingdom are aware of it. I assume they don't contemplate. They don't have to worry about 401ks and retirement and whatever they are. They're more survival oriented. But we, the human race, due to the size of our brains and other factors, become aware of our own mortality. And we ponder that. And that's very real. So then we start to ask, what is personally fulfilling now? And then it becomes, do I want to quit this job I've got in whatever field you're in and go do something different that would be more fulfilling? And those are scary thoughts. Change is generally scary for most folks, especially since you've been doing something. Job burnout is the product of years. It's not the product of months. If you burned out after a month, you'd have been such a horrible employee, you'd have gotten fired anyway. But certain types of work or certain ways of being, let's say you value kindness. That's me. Like, I value compassion, kindness, thoughtfulness, generosity, pretty much above everything. So I put myself in positions where I can be and do those things. So whatever your desires are in life, if you can figure them out, whatever puts you in a position to manifest those internal qualities, those things you value, it won't eliminate burnout. It will greatly reduce it, and it might actually eliminate it if you're doing what you believe in. Because job burnout generally has to do with the fact that you're doing it just for a paycheck. And that's not categorically true, because, how many fillings can a dentist drill or root canals until they're like, I've done this so many times? But when you reach an area of expertise, it actually can be extraordinarily enjoyable. We'll use the dentist for an example, where a patient will come in, maybe they need x-rays, maybe they don't, but the dentist says, I know what that is right away. That's this in some long term or whatever, and I know how to fix that because I've been around a long time. That can be very fulfilling. But then again, dentists are doing their own thing. The American Dental Association has guidelines and tests they have to take, but by and large, they're doing their own thing, day-to-day work, and that can be very fulfilling. But doing a job that sort of aligns with your internal values, whatever they may be, and it may be in the exact same job that you're already in the mental health field, where you're like, all right, I now have a new perspective on what I'm doing. I'm actually in the job that I really believe in and like, that aligns with my values that maybe you've had your whole life. And you're like, oh, now I have a newfound energy in this job. It might create a joie de vivre, like a spillover effect, where you're like, wow, I thought I was unhappy with this job, but actually here are the reasons why I'm not. And this is on a much simpler level. It's not necessarily easy to pull off, but if you're truly need a break from it, you need some variation, you could ask your boss, instead of working 5 days a week, can I drop to 3? Let's say you can afford it. Like I know attorneys, a number of attorneys who were working, 5 hours, 70 hours, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 70, 80 hours. And then after a while, they were like, I don't want to do all this any longer. And they dropped down to say 3 days a week. They almost always wind up going back to 5 days a week, by the way. Well, the money's irresistible in many ways, but the lawyers burn out, doctors burn out, people burn out because they're doing the same thing over and over and over again. Very bright people, very driven people, but the routine of it just gets to be boring. So you can ask your boss, is there a way that I could drop to 3 days a week? Or can I work remotely? Maybe just to change up your routine so that you can just roll out of bed and go to your laptop and do work from there. Things like this, you could just ask your boss or employer if that's a possibility. And the change of scenery and scheduling and just realizing that, well, you're not destined to just do the same thing every day. You have some control over your life. That in and of itself will increase your mood. And burnout basically is just something where, wow, I'm in a crappy mood every freaking day because I don't like my work. But you may actually like your work. It may be the other parts of it that you may not like. So switch up. If you can afford it and your boss will accommodate you, lower your workload. And then when you're sort of feeling better, or you may not feel better, you may need to quit and get a different job. But you may find that you really do like the job that you're in more once you examine these things and sort of test the waters. Because sometimes we think the grass is going to be greener elsewhere. I know a lot of people who've retired and they are bored out of their skull and they go back to take some kind of work because you want some sense of purpose in your life. So there's a bunch of thoughts. I hope some of those gel for you. And if you have questions about any topic, not just job burnout, maybe it's marriage issues, maybe it's entrepreneurial issues, whatever it may be. If you're an artist touring, if you're on the road or whatever and things are too much, feel free to email me and I can put a video together or we can arrange to do personal coaching, just one-on-one. And that's typically done via telephone, so it's pretty easy. So there it is, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Leave your questions if you're comfortable doing that or send them in an email privately and we'll go from there. Alrighty. Have a great day. I hope things go well.